We are back on Morning Line. Final segment this morning with Clint Kelly, malpractice attorney. Every time he comes on, I learn something. Oh, my gosh, a lot of times it's stuff that scares me.
I don't want to come across that way.
You deal with the bad part of it. The vast majority of, outcomes are good.
I mean, my business is to pick up the pieces when there are mistakes. I don't have cases where there's good care or where there's bad outcomes, that I can't do anything about. And so that's why I know what I know, and I don't want to scare everybody, because that's not the point. It's just to be aware. You have rights. If something bad happens to you or a family member, a major medical injury or death, there is a court system available to you.
Absolutely.
And as long as you do something in a timely manner where I can get it reviewed, you have a right to redress and accountability. And knowing answers, Nick, it's so important. I mean, I know how people look at people who sue and they think, oh, they're in it for the money. It's all just a big lottery and everything. You would be surprised how many people come to me when they first want to discuss a case, and they say two things. They never talk about money. They'll say, I want to know why this happened, and I want to make sure this doesn't happen to somebody else. Mm-hmm. Be amazed how many times I hear that. Yeah. And really the money is basically the way that the hospital, if it's a settlement or if it goes to trial, a jury forces an apology. Because it's rare when they come up to you and say, we're sorry. Right. What they typically do is they open up a checkbook and they scratch out a check, rip it off and give it to you. That's their apology for what they've done. But people have needs. I mean, there's nothing worse than watch your bank account drain. Yeah. And you've got to make the next mortgage payment. And you can't work because of some bad outcome. You got a kid in school. You got all these things going on, and a lifetime is a long time. I had a case not too long ago with a 16-year-old girl. She's going to live likely another 60 years with one good leg. And in this competitive economy, she's just a high school graduate, may have 1 or 2 years of vocational training. In this competitive environment, she's going to start at the back of the line. Because unfortunately, employers, it's just a fact of life, okay? So I'm not criticizing anybody, I'm an employer. But if you got the choice between a healthy applicant and an unhealthy applicant, all things being equal, who are you going to choose, Nick? Right, you understand where that's coming from. I mean, it's a cost factor, there's just a lot involved. So the person who's unhealthy, who through no fault of their own is because somebody screwed them up or botched the surgery on them, that's the person that needs compensation to at least have some measure of a decent life. Have you ever seen a situation where you've been involved, but because of the behavior of the hospital or the doctors, it helped maybe resolve the issue, maybe with less damage than otherwise would have been? What I mean is a doctor saying, sitting down after the fact, I messed up. I'm sorry. This is what we did. You may contact an attorney, but I want to sit down and try to make this right, but I did make a mistake. And I don't know, depending on whether or not the individual has dollar signs in their eyes or is someone who appreciates them being honest, that it's worked out differently. Does that ever happen? I had a case one time at a mediation, a case where a woman was badly injured during an obstetric procedure. Okay, badly injured, burned, third-degree burns, terrible, in the worst place you can be burned. So we're in mediation, and you always fight real hard till you get to a point where it's time to resolve the case. And the doctor was probably about 75% at fault, and the hospital was 25% at fault. We go in there and we start talking mediation. Everybody goes in their separate rooms. The first thing the hospital lawyer did was walk into my client's room, asked me if he could do it. I said, of course you can. Came in there, sat down, and apologized profusely to my client on behalf of his client. The hospital. The hospital. I mean a real heartfelt apology. This is just settled that guy, and he was out of there within an hour. And in my opinion, he underpaid. But it was because my client was so taken aback by that, and that's what she wanted to hear more than anything else. Yeah, I'm so glad you shared that. So and what am I to say? I mean, they come in there, and I mean that's as heartfelt as it gets. I mean, you say, okay, fine. So you saw this. I mean, when he came in, he's talking to her, and he's literally saying, there's nothing I can say. I am so sorry. Yeah. We apologize. We want to try. So boom, hospital's cut loose. Meaning, and so how'd that work? So you guys then, she's talking, and he goes, this is what we can offer or whatever, and you talked with her. He didn't even talk money, Nick. He came in there and he told her, I want to tell you on behalf of the hospital how sorry we are this happened. It never should have happened. We should have had people out, it just went through all the reasons why it should have happened and said, I wish you'd heard this months ago. We're in litigation. It's hard for us to express it, but now we're talking money, we're talking settlement. I want you to know how we've been feeling about this all along. And of course, we knew what their offer was. And she said, Clint, settle with him. I'm going to settle with him. And of course, I do what my client tells me to do.
Sure.
The reason I tell you that is we went 2 more months with the doctor.
I was about to ask
who
that
would
part.
not apologize. And in the middle of the trial, he finally paid. And I'm not going to say overpaid, but he didn't like it, but he had to pay because he knew that he was going to get popped by the jury. And I just wonder to this day if that doctor had come in there
and done the same thing the hospital did. Might
have saved his insurance company $200,000, $300,000, $400,000.
Yeah. Just interesting that you say that. That's rare, though, isn't it? What that hospital's attorney did. And that may have been part of their strategy. He probably didn't go in there thinking he was going to hurt me. We have nothing to lose, and I believe it was probably sincere the way he delivered it. You heard it.
And it's happened.
But that's rare.
It's happened the other way too. I've had it where the surgeon has apologized to my client with, and of course paid what he was supposed to pay, but he had a heart, and he was kind of like that from the very beginning, where the hospital took a hard position. So you'd be amazed how patients just want to hear sorry. They want somebody to put their hand on their shoulder and say, it's going to be all right, or we're going to try to make this right and move on, versus just digging their heels in the sand and just, rolling up their sleeves and grabbing weapons and let's go to war when you know there's been wrongdoing.
Right. That's the way I'd look at it. Wow, that's very interesting. As we wrap things up, I've had some people comment to me and send me messages asking, knowing that you're going to come in about class actions. They see a lot of the commercials sometimes, and I know you've been involved in some class action lawsuits. Oftentimes it has to do with medicines or some kinds of procedures. They see this on TV. They say, make the phone call. It's usually a lawyer or some kind of graphic that goes up. Have you taken such and such? What can you share about these types of cases and what it means when someone says, well, I took that, they're asking me to call this number, I'll call. How does that work?
Well, what I tell people is call your local lawyer.
Okay. I mean if you see that and you say, I was on that.
Call me, because this is what I do. What happens with these big, the commercials you're talking about, just so people know, here's what happens. These are paid telemarketers that put these commercials out. When you call, they will refer your call to a call center. And the call center will basically vet the call to see if the call meets the criteria. Then they will send you to another lawyer. And that lawyer likely won't even handle the case. That lawyer will send you to another lawyer, and that other lawyer will be the trial lawyer that handles the case. So you'll go through a series of folks, and you'll wind up with people in Arizona.
I was going to say, because these are nationwide cases if it's a class action. So you could be here and end up with someone out of state that's the
attorney.
Correct.
You have no relationship other than you signed a contract. These people are not going to get on the phone and talk to you or talk about your case or, keep you up to speed. You may get letters in the mail or get emails, but it's not going to be anywhere near the type of intimacy that you would have with a local lawyer you could talk to.
But if it's class action, isn't there a team of lawyers or that lawyer in Arizona or wherever that's got that? I mean, if they were to contact you, then are they standing alone with you, or then do you then find a way to get them to be part of the class action case?
It's going to be the latter, but at least I know who.
I know. Yeah. I would want to know that Clint's there representing me. He's there. It goes. So then you get them on board.
And I know who
to
pick. I know who to pick. I can do the research and find out. And it's what they are mass torts. That's what they're called nowadays. I can find out who the right law firm is that's handling the case. I do my own vetting, and I develop a line of communication with them, and then I can talk to the client, and the client at least can get an answer from me. I'll take the phone call and explain what's going on, and they're not paying me any more than what they would pay these telemarketers that are on TV. Because everybody's charging the same amount of money in these cases, 40% contingency fee. It's all the same across the board. But at least with me, you've got a local counsel that you can talk to versus some yahoo in Arizona you don't know.
They always do talk about class actions, and it's just lawyers, and it's the business the way it works. But the people who get rich in the class actions are lawyers, right?
Well, yeah.
Well, all I'm saying is, as the individual, you've got 100,000 clients in class action. They each get a little piece of this, but the lawyers get 40%.
You couldn't try them all. If you try to try them all, the company would go broke, the lawyers would go broke. That's unfortunately the inefficiency of the system. You have to have a large group of cases that you can settle en masse and give everybody a piece, because if you didn't and you went separately, you'd go broke.
Is 40% the standard?
It's the standard attorney's fee in those cases.
In class action cases.
Now, a third is in malpractice, because by statute, we don't charge more than a third. But if it's a drug case, medical product case, that sort of thing, it's 40%.
You involved in any of those right now?
Yeah, I've got some of them. We're
are they in
closing
federal
out.
court usually?
Yes,
or are they?
yes, almost always federal court.
So you have some, and they take a while, don't they?
Oh, forever. Forever. We've got some that have been on the books, Nick, for over 10 years.
Is it just the defense?
I could spend an hour with you talking about it.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of it, because people don't live to get their justice. We've had people die, many people die, waiting. They're never going to get their day in court.
It's awful. Wheels of justice turn slow. Real quick, let's remind folks then again, you talk about the calls free to your office. We're going to get the information up there on where they can call your office in Hendersonville.
Always. It's 615-8000000. That's 800-0000. KellyFirm.net. You can go to either one. I have a paralegal in my office named Michelle. We've got another paralegal coming on board who takes the information from the client. Every time that happens, that information is sent directly to me. Okay, as well as my father. We vet it, we look it over, we absorb it, we make a determination whether we think the case has merit. If we do, we'll send it to a medical expert and have a medical expert review it and tell us, do we have a case? If we have a case, we'll bring the client in, sign the client up. Client pays nothing unless we recover money. Right. That's all you do. You get paid out of we get paid out of the proceeds of the recovery. If you lose, you're not lost anything.
Yep. All it takes is your time.
And you get answers. That's the one thing you're always going to get is an answer. And if I don't take the case,
right. I want to just say that.
I promise I'll send you a letter explaining why I didn't take it.
Yeah, a lot of times people, you would not believe the times I get calls from someone said, well, I called this attorney or that attorney, and they just said no. And I go, well, do you know why? And they have no idea. And they've explained it to me sometimes. I'm like, well, that sounds like a legit case. They didn't tell you why. I'm sorry, I can't help you. They call me a lot because they know I know attorneys like you. But I think it's great that that's something you do.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times.
at least explain why you can't take it.
Maybe it's a case where we think the statute of limitations bars the claim. We'll tell the patient in writing that that's the case.
Or you may say, hey, look, you may have had a case, but the damage is not great enough.
Doesn't meet our criteria. Exactly.
Which is what it comes to.
Yeah.
Clint, it's a pleasure. It is always good seeing you. Listen, take care. We'll see you again soon. All right, my friend?
Thank you.
Take a break. Be back. Programming note right after this.